Hello everyone, this is Eflex and welcome to another A Producer's Approach video. First off, I want to say to everyone, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. So this is going to be the Christmas theme video for the release on Christmas Day. It just so happens that Christmas falls on a Saturday, which is my normal release day. So I figured I'd do a more Christmas themed review for Christmas Day. So as you guys know, the normal structures for my videos is I do an intro and personal backstory. Then after that I do a breakdown and a analysis, and then after that I do an outro. So for this video I'm going to be breaking down and analyzing Mr.FijiWiji song Imaginary Friend featuring Brenton Mattheus. So just to go into some, backstory behind this song. So around 2012 was around the time I started listening to Monstercat. I want to say closer to the beginning part of 2012. So I remember when this Christmas EP was released, and as you see here in the artwork, there's Televisor, Rogue, Stephen Walking, Muzzy. They all made a song. But I don't know, out of the whole EP, Mr.FijiWiji song Imaginary Friend really stuck out the most to me, at least. It must be like the chill atmosphere or something in the song, but we'll get into that when start the breakdown and analysis section. But at this time, I think Monstercat also did like a Halloween special EP and a Christmas special EP. After 2012, Monstercat never did that again. They didn't do holiday special dedication EPs. So this was kind of like an early Monstercat type thing. And I honestly wish they did more holiday themed EPs like this, because I don't know, it just gave a special meaning to a lot of these songs. So a lot of the songs on this EP are almost like reworks or remakes from the artist. So like Televisor remade like We Wish You a Merry Christmas, so they kind of reworked it in their style. But Imaginary Friend, I think, is the only kind of original song. And this song was so unique at this time because, Fij was just developing his sound for kind of chill music. And there wasn't a lot of chill kind of electronic music on Monstercat yet. It was mostly electro, house, dubstep, drum and bass, and they didn't even call new disco or electronic those two genres. They just categorized them as EDM. They didn't even call them new disco or electronic. They just called like whatever wasn't those four genres EDM. So that was pretty interesting in that regards. So this song is definitely, one of the better songs of this EP, and one of my favorites as well, and also one of my top 5 Mr.FijiWiji releases. I do come back to the song quite often because this is like one of those songs that's on the Christmas album, but it's not really like a Christmas themed song in a sense. Like you can listen to it on Christmas, but like if you listen to this song outside of Christmas, like you still kind of get the same feeling and effect for the song and the message, whereas it's not like a dedicated Christmas themed song. So this is also the first song where I heard Brenton Mattheus vocals, and over time I've listened to a lot of songs with his vocals. I even did a remix of a song that used his vocals, so in a sense I kind of was able to manipulate and work on his vocals. But this was the first time I ever heard of Brenton Mattheus, and he's part of many notable songs like Archie's song Kingdom, and the song I actually remixed from Deso and Nitro Fun. I can't remember the name of the song at the moment, but the remix is on my main channel if you want to listen to it. But those two songs, and I know there are quite a few other songs where Brenton Mattheus is featured artist, but this is the first time I heard his vocals, and his vocals are really good. I don't really see him do as many vocals for, I guess, maybe EDM songs anymore. Um, I don't know if he changed his name to like a alias, or if he maybe doesn't maybe sing anymore, or just maybe decide to sing on different genres of music and not so much EDM anymore. So I'm not exactly sure about that, but this is the song Imaginary Friend by Mr.FijiWiji featuring the awesome Brenton Mattheus. So that is my personal backstory, and we'll start this breakdown. Alright, so in this beginning section, you really kind of hear Fiji's plucks. Now, a lot of artists use plucks, but at least in this time, the plucks that Mr.FijiWiji used a lot were really unique to his sound. I know he uses plucks kind of in his more current music as well, but at this time, the plucks he used were like very defined as his kind of unique sound. You kind of could hear how his plucks were, I almost want to say like they were filtered a bit, and then like halfway through, I guess, this intro section, like they kind of got fuller. So the song might be going through like a oscillator, maybe like a LFO oscillator, where the sound is not like as wide, and then automates and then gets wider as the song progresses. And then you kind of hear that introduction vocal for Brenton Mattheus right in the beginning, go whoa, like you kind of hear that reverbed in the background, and then you kind of hear the pad kind of come in as well, kind of setting up the tone and the ambience of the song. So definitely a cool little intro part there with his plucks. So we'll get into the next section now.
I know that I cannot see without you by my side always. Forget about me, I understand what we're fighting for. And I say, I don't want anything more. And
All right, so you have that section. Brenton Matthews' vocals come in. There's kind of a halftime percussion with a kick and a snare. You have the plucks playing with the pad, and if I wasn't recording this video, I probably would be singing along with Brenton Matthews with these vocals. But I'm recording this video, so I don't want to make you guys have to listen to my bad singing. So I just figured I'd put that in there, but you kind of hear his vocals kind of being paired with the plucks and the pad in the background. You could tell the sounds are like all really full. They have a lot of reverb and delay on it. And the snare actually is a lot punchier than I thought for a break section. I think this is kind of early days of Mr.FijiWiji, so eventually like he uses more acoustic sounding percussion and more natural sounding percussion, as opposed to kind of a really punchy snare in the beginning section here. But as you could tell, this is actually the kind of build-up section. There wasn't a traditional build-up, so he kind of just had that kind of break rhythm section with the vocal come in play, and then it kind of just stopped. I'm not even sure if there was like a white noise sound building up. I didn't really hear it on my end, but it just kind of plays out, and then you kind of hear the percussion just stop, and then there's kind of like a breath of air, like a gap in between, and you kind of hear the reverb tail, and then now it's kind of gonna go into like the drop section, I believe. So we'll kind of go and listen and see if I'm correct or not. right, so that was actually the drop section. I was correct. So you notice that the build up had kind of it wasn't a traditional build up, gave that gap, and then the drop hits. So the pluck sound that you hear in the beginning isn't as prominent. The bass sound kind of comes in. There's kind of like a mid bass sound, and then there's also a sub paired with it, and the vocals are playing, and there's also kind of like a lead sound playing as well. But it's kind of interesting. The vocal is paired with the kind of the plucks in the background, with more prominent sound and focus being on the bass and the vocal, as well as that kind of lead in the background. And then it kind of has like a break in the drop, and then there's kind of like the rest of the drop is kind of like this delayed almost like sound. It almost sounds like a delayed kind of pluck sound in the background in that section. So it's kind of interesting. It's almost like another layer of his pluck, since his pluck sound isn't as prominent. That kind of I don't even know what you would call it, kind of like a reverse kind of delayed pluckish sound. It's kind of layered in there to give an extra texture and extra flow into that section of the drop. So very interesting. And then here you hear the drop just kind of stops, and then there's kind of like a reverbing sound or effect here. So we'll listen to this part, and then I'll go break down into more of that. All right, so that section is really interesting after the break. So the strings play, but the strings are really quiet and they're kind of thin. So they're not super thin, but they're thinner than I thought they would be. But they do kind of fill up the space, and then that kind of percussion that plays is so interesting. It's like it almost even doesn't sound like percussion. It almost sounds like sound effects playing, like really high pitched, almost like filtered percussion. It's really interesting. I don't know what that sound actually is. It just sounds like really kind of like high pitched percussion, almost like synth sounds playing in terms of like a rhythm. But the orchestral parts kind of build up slowly. They're still pretty thin, and then they kind of get a little bit wider, but the volume is still kind of low. So this section's very, chill and very low, and kind of a more chill section to a break section than I've heard in, most of the songs that we've broken down so far. Most of them are pretty upbeat, energetic, or the sound is like much higher in volume. But this one and this song, like the percussion is like really unique, and the strings are really low in terms of sound. But then you kind of hear that white noise push, and then you're going to hear the kind of staple in Mr.FijiWiji style, his very unique vocal chopping. So I'll let you guys hear the section now, and then I'll break it down a little bit later. Alright, so that section, you kind of hear the very classic Mr. Fiji vocal chop section. I don't know if there's any song that Mr. Fiji doesn't have, or he has his kind of more unique kind of vocal pitched almost like vocal chops. They're very unique. They have a lot of effects on them, I would imagine. I don't know what exactly he does to achieve his unique vocal chops, but if you listen to his music, you can definitely tell like that's what he does in his style. I mean, a lot of artists vocal chop in their music, but certain ones like Mr.FijiWiji has a very distinct style in how he vocal chops in all of his music. So that's always really cool. And then you kind of hear that kind of high pitched percussion sound, and then it kind of switches to the traditional percussion sound with the kick and the snare and the more punchy snare. And then you have some white noise sweeps kind of coming in to kind of progress the flow of this section. And then you also have like the sub bass on the bottom that you could feel within that break section. And then after kind of that outro section of just the kick, snare, the vocal chopping, and the sub, and then it ends. And then you notice there's like another breath of air here. So there are a lot of gaps of air, or I guess gaps between sections to kind of separate the sections, which is, a little more unique in terms of structuring music. Not every song has that much of a gap in between each song, but for this song, it really kind of goes with the chill tone, giving gaps and stuff like that. So we'll listen to this part and you'll kind of hear the pluck sound slowly progress back up into leading into the drop. So we'll go listen to this part now.
A dream, a little time to fall asleep. Our love is like a thunderstorm bracing through my heart. I don't wanna be away from you. Yeah.
Alright, so this section is really cool. He started with the pluck sound, switched it to a piano sound, and then had the vocals playing, but the vocals sound like they have a filter on it. So they sound thinner and almost like they're the vocals sound like they're almost going through like a radio or walkie-talkie, almost in that sense, where they're thinner like that. They're not really full. And then he just kind of has that sound, the vocal and the piano kind of, playing together and harmonizing, with the piano playing the chords and the vocals, singing the vocals. And then he has a noise kind of sweep in, and then there's another kind of gap before this drop, and then you kind of hear the introductionary sound for the lead sound kind of come back in before the drop, and then there's kind of a audio or sound effect kind of pushing that sound in, almost like a white noise one, but not as prominent as a white noise one. But you kind of hear that kind of note playing into this drop with that kind of white noise effect. So as you notice, there's at least like 3 or 4 gaps between sections. So that's definitely something cool to note with the song. But I like the effect that he used for the vocals and in this section with the piano, where there's no percussion, just the vocals and the piano. One thing I will say is I thought the piano was a little bit wider, so I thought there was more depth to the piano. It actually sounds kind of thin. So it might be just kind of the era of this time of when he was making music. He wasn't, as technical and stuff, because, most artists in that section make the piano a little bit wider. Same with the vocals. I get with the vocals, though, he was trying to do that effect, but the piano, I think in, future songs, he makes a little bit wider. So that's just something cool to note. Not that that's bad or anything, but that section is just really cool. So we'll listen to the drop now. right, so that is the second drop, and a couple things I noticed right off the bat were that the vocal kind of plays in the introduction, and then the vocal cuts out in the part of the drop, and then the kind of delayed, almost lead sound kind of plays along for a little bit, and then after that, the vocals are reintroduced into the last part of the drop, and then till the drop ends. So it's pretty cool. In terms of the percussion rhythm, the drop is pretty similar to the first drop in terms of that. The progression itself is pretty similar to the first drop, but it's just like kind of the changes with the vocal and the lead. So it's like he sectioned it out, like there's like a vocal kind of almost harmonizing part in the beginning, and then that plays with the chord progression. Then after that, he has kind of a delayed-ish type lead sound playing. And if you guys don't know the artist Day One, and around this time of 2012, Day One also made this kind of, I almost want to say like a windish kind of reverb, delayed, like heavy audio effect lead sound. And I could almost tell like there was an influence in the song, maybe from his leads that he used at that time, because Day One was making a lot of music around this time as, you know, Mr.FijiWiji was, and maybe there was some inspiration there, or just maybe it was a coincidence that both of their leads sound similar and have like a similar type of style, but definitely reminds me of like a Day One lead in one of his songs, as Mr.FijiWiji had in this song for the drop, where it's like a really, you hear the lead but it's really delayed and it's not like super prominent. It kind of blends in with like the rest of the mix and the chords, and then after that it just kind of switches into like the vocal hook section for you know, the outro of the section of the drop. And I will say you do kind of notice with like the parts where the vocal and like the chords play, like that one section where it was just the piano and the vocals, you can really hear the effects of like the reverb and delay kind of on them, because they kind of carry their own space, and it's not really dry where the vocals just end right after like he says his words. Like it carries a little more weight and effects on it, so that's pretty cool. And now we'll just listen to the outro of the song. All right, so that outro was pretty cool. It had some strings playing out for quite a bit, and then he actually had like a low tone bass sound. I almost want to say it's sound, yeah, like a low tone-ish bass sound. At first, I thought it was like a piano playing on the bottom, like in just lower notes, but it actually sounds more like a bass, or like maybe a low tone string sound playing, or just a regular kind of bass synth playing. And then there's like a white noise uplifter, which almost sounds like a cymbal too, and then kind of just, you know, uplifts and then downlifts down, and that's kind of the transition to the outro of the song. So overall, this is Mr.FijiWiji's song Imaginary Friend featuring Brenton Mattheus. While this is like a early Mr.FijiWiji song, this song really shows you like what FijiWiji will become in terms of his style and stuff, because you could already tell, like, from all the songs that I've broken down, like this song at least had 4 different gaps in before like the drops, and just separating different parts of the song, and just the amount of effects and the overall atmosphere of the song was like really chill, pretty unique. And especially in this time in 2012, when, you know, everyone was making dubstep or progressive house or complextro or trance music, like this was really unusual for this time. Like nowadays, you know, you have like chill step and chill music and garage music, but at this time, music like this was not very popular or not really being made either. So this song to me was like ahead of its time, and to be on a Christmas album is even cooler because I don't know if you guys noticed, but this isn't really like a very Christmas themed, like a Jingle Bell Rocks type, song, like a cover of that. This is like its own song, and Mr.FijiWiji kind of, made that, but with kind of a Christmassy type vibe with the imaginary friend thing. And the way he used Brenton Matthews' vocals in the song are so good. And Brenton Matthews, his vocals in general are good, but like the vocal hook in the song is just so good. I just want to sing along with it every single time I hear the song. So overall, this is like a great representation of Mr.FijiWiji's music. And his style isn't like super evolved yet and at this time period, but you kind of get the sense of this is where his style was starting to become his own in a sense. So overall, I hope you guys like this approach I had. If you guys have not listened to Mr.FijiWiji's music, definitely check his music out. It's definitely one of the more unique music styles. I know for a little bit he went into like future-ish progressive house kind of type music, but his kind of electronic kind of garage, I guess you call it, chill music is really good. And overall, if you haven't checked out this Monstercat Christmas album, feel free to check it out. This song, feel free to check it out, Imaginary Friend. And overall, have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas to everyone, to anyone that celebrates. I hope you guys have a safe holiday with all the crazy things that are happening in the world. I hope, you're able to meet up with family, or at least have a good meal or something along those lines. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Merry Christmas. Check out Mr.FijiWiji's music, and look forward to my releases coming out on Saturdays, Sundays, and Wednesdays so far. If anything changes, I'll let you guys know, but leave a comment if you like or dislike this video. And again, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and have a good one, everyone. Peace.